What does world-class real estate look like to you?
It's about creating relationships,
consistent communication.
Estate agency with a great culture, who care for their people, who care for their clients, who care for their customers, without just looking at the number at the end of the commission check.
I think it's about amazing customer service.
It's about people, not property.
This episode is sponsored by Iceberg Digital.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark and joined as ever by Mr. Ian Macbeth. Good morning, mate. How are you?
Good. You're very good. Yeah. Seeing the book everywhere at the moment. Loving the workbook being knocked about. How about yourself? How are we doing up there?
Yeah, very good. Everton Chelsea this weekend, so we'll talk about that next week. But the book has been going really well. By the time this podcast goes out, we will probably have had to buy some more because I am virtually sold out. I think I've got 6 copies left, and it's gone. I think it's fair to say it's gone better than expected. And I've given a copy to all of our team, and actually did that last Tuesday. We're actually going to sit down for our Tuesday meeting this week and go through one of the podcasts and actually use the book exactly as it's intended. So I'm quite excited about that because the team have reacted really well to it, and actually it's a pretty cool thing to have within the business to train and upskill the team with. So yeah, I'm
something that we haven't done that I only realised because I had Ben Hicks and Matt Barrell were in the office last week, and when they came in, they were like, this is the book. I was like, yeah, you guys are in the book. There's a lot of people in the book that don't know they're in the book. We should probably get a copy out to the people that we're ultimately leveraging their knowledge within the book.
Yes, good point. Actually, I remember
they were like, wow, that's amazing. Like, it was so cool for them, and obviously they took a book away, but it is cool that you're in the book as well, and there's a lot of great guests in the book. So yes. If you are a guest of 2025, there's a good chance you're in the book. We should probably arrange some way of getting you some sort of at least a discount on it. Although I did, to be fair, Cindy picked it up, and she was like, wow, for 10 quid plus postage, what a load of value in that, because it's a proper thick book, with a lot of knowledge in there. So I think we underpriced ourselves, Mark.
Yeah, when I came to edit it, I did. It sort of grew legs and turned into quite a long document. We were just talking on air. There's, it's not going to be the most profitable venture we've ever done, I don't think. But we said from the outset that's not what it's about. It's about we've got loads of value from the podcast. It's about when you mentioned about those people that give their time up each week to do this. It's about turning that into something that's really valuable for the industry. So yeah, we've had I've had a few selfies. Michelle sent us one yesterday, so they'll be going out on social media. So yeah, and as I said on a few emails that I've sent to a few different people who've ordered it and what have you, any feedback greatly received, because the plan is to do this every year, I think.
Yeah, well, maybe it might be the cheapest that it's
we might have to put the price up.
Yeah, but I think we've got a process with it now, haven't we? So we'll be able to get it turned around quicker, and I'm sure today's guest will be an episode in next year's one. I've known Aaron for a good couple of years now. Actually, we kind of obviously started our self-employed model. He's got a brokerage model as well. We're both life cycle users, so we kind of share that little community there. Very, very good estate agent, very forward thinking, very caring estate agent as well. You kind of get that, not a stereotypical kind of loud character, but that everything he's kind of digesting at any event or in any conversation, he's seriously deep dive thinking about, which normally makes an educated decision, I would say as well. So yeah, very much looking forward to getting Aaron on the show. Been an agent for over 20 years, so I'm sure we'll be talking a lot of good agency convos as well. So yeah, it should be a really good guest today. Shall we dive in there, Mark?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get him on.
If you're an estate agent listening to this, I want you to think about something for a second. Are you and your team busy, or are you actually being productive? Because most agencies right now are drowning in admin, juggling disconnected systems, chasing portal leads, and wondering why profits aren't where they really should be. Iceberg Digital have taken a completely different approach. Instead of selling another CRM, they've built what they call an AI operating system for estate agents, combining prospecting, marketing, CRM, compliance, even websites into one connected ecosystem. The goal? To increase your revenue per employee, because the agencies that win over the next few years won't be the ones working harder, they'll be the ones working smarter, with systems that actually do the heavy lifting. If you want to future-proof your agency instead of just surviving the next market shift, go and book a demo at icebergdigital.co.uk. That's icebergdigital.co.uk.
Aaron, welcome to the World Class Real Estate Podcast. How are you?
Yeah, morning. Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. So
Nice backdrop for the video recording for those that are watching and not listening. Did you dress that up for us?
I did indeed. Yeah. I do. To be fair, I use it whenever I do a video for a client. If I'm doing like a market update for them and stuff, I always have the lights on. So it just looks nicer, doesn't it?
Yeah, the lights and the trophies. I'm sure we'll get into that, Aaron. We'll start as we always do. What does world class real estate look like to you?
So to be honest, I've been having to think about this because I know that's the first question you go to, and I personally don't think you can put it down to one single thing. I think it is a culmination of everything from service to marketing to the way that you talk to your clients. Managing expectations. I don't, being open and honest with them. I think it is all of those things sort of put into one. Consistent service, I guess. And I think only then could you really call it world class. I don't think you could do fantastic marketing, but then let someone down on service and say, oh yeah, no, we're world class because we do better marketing than Joe Blogs down the road, or vice versa. So for us, it's always been about client experience. That's a really big thing for us. And I think personally, that is what world class looks like. And ultimately, I think you want that client to become a fan of your business. That is always our end goal, not just there's thanks for paying that bill, see you later kind of situation. It's thank you, who can we help next? Or when you're next moving, don't forget to give me a call. And it's that's the long game.
You said on your website, actually, when I was looking at the Property Cloud, that proudly independent and exceptionally forward thinking is one of the, almost was the first sentence effectively there for a client to kind of experience. What's that part of a estate agency for you guys at the Property Cloud? What's that kind of exceptional and forward thinking sort of approach that you guys take to estate agency?
It's just being ahead and being better than our competition. I think we're in an area where there's fewer independents and there's a lot of corporate style agencies. And I think we always just want to be one step ahead of them. So we always are thinking forward to the next step, right? What are we doing now that our competition is starting to creep into their services and marketing? And what can we do now to go that extra further step ahead of them? And it's things like trying to streamline our service, using AI to streamline our administrative side of and tasks of the business. It's making sure that our video marketing and just general marketing as a whole is better than our competition. And again, it's just trying to stay 2 steps ahead every time. So and I feel like we've done that really well. I've always tried to be sort of leading in the way we do things in our area, and I tend to focus less on what the competition are doing in terms of like the numbers and stuff, and more about, right, what are we doing and what can we do better? So that for me is really the forward thinking side of it, to be fair.
And you talked about sort of customer experience and no one thing, no silver bullet. We've talked about on this show a few times. So that then means it's really challenging to get across to the customer that you want to be world class because you want to do all of these little things. How do you do that at the Property Cloud by saying the customer experience is really important to us and this is what we do different? How do you communicate your sort of desire to be world class to your clients?
That's quite a good question, to be fair. I don't think it's not one of these where, we're waiting until we're sitting in the living room kind of situation. I think that forms part of it, but overall, it's just everything that we're doing. I think it's quite clear when you look at our website or when you look at our Instagram page or you follow me on TikTok. I mean, it's quite clear kind of the standards that we sort of set. And I do think that rubs off. And I mean, just in the last couple of weeks, I've actually been instructed on 2 new clients who found me first on TikTok, see our videos, and said, one of them actually said to me, when I see your marketing, I knew I wanted you to market my home. And I think that's kind of step one as such. If we want to be seen, we want to be visible, but we want to be seen in a way that people think like that. I'd love that agent to market my property because, they do it extremely well. And then it's, getting them into the email journeys and, that kind of stuff. And then continuously feeding them content that kind of really tells the story of what we're about, I guess, and how we'll help them.
We had a chat. We're in the same mastermind, me and Mark, and in our chat, one of the owners was looking around for some training for one of their branch managers or a couple of their branch managers to how to kind of maximize and get the best out of their office.
Yeah.
And I was kind of thinking, I don't know why, for some reason I was thinking about it this morning. I was thinking, wow, that's a proper training day. Like and what you were talking about there with kind of doing everything, world class ultimately looks like everything. If we were to design the world-class branch manager training course, you can't really do that in a day, can you? There's just something that you kind of, it takes time, and people that haven't been estate agents, I think they struggle to comprehend that side of it. They kind of start on day one and they think, I'll just do this, but then within 3 months there's quite a lot to this, isn't there?
Yeah, it's like, hold on a minute, I didn't sign up to be a therapist, but that's a part of it as well, so
there's a lot going on here. For you, what was the decision to take the partner self-employed brokerage model? Did it just happen? Was it something you'd always thought about? You started on by yourself, right? And you kind of created it. And what were you doing prior to that, Aaron? And that's kind of 2 questions in one for you there.
Yeah. So I think starting with kind of where we started from, it was, so I've been an agent since 2005. I was 18 and I just went for an interview. I wasn't expecting to be an estate agent. I'd come out of selling flooring, so it was completely different. I was working for my dad as soon as I left school, and he closed his business. So I just see an ad in the paper. My wife actually see an ad in the paper, and I kind of went for it. But I loved it. As soon as I got into it, I loved it. I was an independent. I'm still really close friends with my two managers at the time, and the business owners. And that was great. And then I kind of grew my career up to the point where I wanted to start my own business in late 2013 after a bit of a bad spell with the business owner that I was working for at the time. He was a bit of a nasty piece of work. He weren't very nice to work for, and he pushed me into a position whereby I was really struggling with my mental health, and so a bit of bullying and things. Which at the time, I thought, I don't want to do this for anyone else anymore. I'm spending all this time out of the office, out of home, and in the office, and I'm, missing my daughter growing up. I don't see her in the mornings before she wakes up. I barely see her at night when she's, I get home and she's going to bed. And I thought, let's go for it. So I started making the plans for the property clouds. And at the time, I could see the market was transitioning in terms of the online presence of agents rather than having to have an office. So I set the business up at the time as an online agent. And funnily enough, I think the month that we went live, Purple Bricks went live at a similar time. So it was very similarly set up. Obviously, I didn't have the financial power that they did.
Yeah, so, different budgets, would you say? Is that fair?
Totally different budget. Yeah, just a bit. So then I, within 3 months of doing it for myself, I changed our model because it wasn't working. And I could see sort of forwards that in another 3 months, 6 months, I'm not going to be here if I continue on this trajectory. I need to make sure that we're bringing in more income. So I changed our sort of pay structure or fee structure was a sort of an upfront fee, less than £1,000. And then it went from that to 0.5%, then 0.75, and now it's like I've got a free tier service that we offer 1.25, 1.5, and 1.6, depending on what they want out of us. Yeah, and then sort of moving forward to 2018 was the first time I started looking at the partner model and having someone self-employed come in. And the reason I've done that is because, again, I didn't want offices, never wanted offices. I've always wanted to have a business which is more for the client. And again, it's all about the client experience. And I just felt that that was a great way to do that. Unfortunately, the two people I had at that time didn't quite work out. I learned a lot. I made a couple of mistakes, and yeah. And then obviously a few years later, I took on Jesse, who's one of our partners now, and he's been with us for I think 4 years now, I believe. So yeah, and I've got 3, and we're looking to try and get more. But I don't think for us or for me anyway, I don't think I want to be like the type of partner brokerage that's massive nationwide. You know, I'd be happy with 10, 12, and that's comfortable, I think, for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say well done for like seeing the trend of negativity within the business and pivoting, because in that short space of time, you've done quite a lot of changes there, from going online to looking at the fee structure to then bringing a partner model in and almost spotting the trend and thinking, right, I'm going to try that. But then that part of it didn't work and slightly deviated. And that's kind of ultimately the sort of journey that a lot of businesses go on, but sometimes they lock in, don't they, on their decision process, and actually that can be the failure. The win is sometimes the change, and you've kind of done that, which is quite cool to hear that story unfold, I think, actually.
Yeah, no, I had to do it. And to be fair, my wife said to me at the time when I was talking about it, she said, no, just see it through, you know, just give it another couple of months. And I said to her, if I give it another couple of months, we won't be here. I'll be working again. I'll be working for somebody else again, you know. So I did it. And yeah, that was one of the harder but better decisions I made at that early stage in the business's life, to be fair.
I was really interested in what you talked about with your previous experience and the challenges that you had with your boss at that time. How do you think that experience has helped you develop your leadership skills and shaped you into the leader that you are today?
I've always said from that moment when I set up the business, I've always said that I will look after my staff like their family. I will not treat them the way I was treated, because I don't think it gets you anywhere. Doesn't. I mean, I've got one of our members of staff who joined me in 2016. She's still with me, and she's with me 10 years in May, and she was my first member of staff, and so I think that kind of says a lot about the business, the culture, and the way that I do things. I do look after them. I do give them flexibility. You know, they got families themselves, so there's no way that I would say to them, you know, you can't go to your son's Christmas play, you know, or, you know, you can't take your son swimming on a Wednesday afternoon while it's really quiet and, you know, nothing's happening. You've worked really hard the last couple of days, but, you know, you're just going to sit there and wait for the phone to ring or whatnot. I'm not going to do that, you know, because I've been there, done that, and it's not enjoyable. And I didn't want that. And I've never had that. So we've always been quite flexible with staff, particularly around family. And I think that's kind of paid dividends, to be fair.
I think that is where the self-employed model is helping the industry retain good people, because I've always said that in the normal traditional estate agency world, it's very difficult to be a good agent and a good parent. Like it's very, very hard to do both. And you highlighted that where you were previously, you know, where you're not seeing your daughter, and where I was previously, you know, the amount of interviews you do where people would be, you know, they're just looking for that half an hour. You know, they're changing jobs because one agent finishes at 7 and one finishes at 6:30, or one finishes at 6:30. That could be the difference. And they're sacrificing 6, 7, 8 grand a year for that half hour, because that half hour is the difference of being able to get there and put the kids to bed versus not. And I think that's what the self-employed model seems to be bringing longevity to experience, because it has been bit of a young man or woman's game, really, agency of the past. But I do think that's changing. Do you think that's where the future goes? You've read some trends over the last 10 years. Do you think we're going to see more of that divide where it's kind of the corporate jungle, on the high street, and then a bit of online traction, and then the self-employed, and that's kind of how it looks? Do you think that will be the way it goes?
I do, yeah. I think the self-employed model will have the largest market share within the next 5 years. I think so, because I do think there's a lot of agents now that are on the high street that are starting to transition into hiring or adopting the self-employed model into their business to help them expand without the need of another office, etc. So I think we're going to see that more and more. And I do think there will be a lot of businesses that see that working and think, well, I don't really need an office anymore. Let's move away from the high street. Because I do feel that the high street office has its benefits to a degree in terms of market presence, but I think it's an expensive way to advertise your company. And I think that's really what it does. I think it's good to have a hub. That's one thing I think we're looking or want to adopt in the near future. At the moment, I've just used my office at the back of the garden. That's kind of the hub where people come to have meetings and catch ups and, have a beer and a pizza and go through marketing and whatever else. So that's quite nice. But I think the trends are looking like that's more likely. And I think the big guns, the EXPs of the world, I think they are really trying to sort of push their market share up. So I can only see that getting bigger as the years go on, to be fair.
And so you've had some challenges with the first self-employed agent, similar to what we did, actually. We had some, not very many, lasted, a few did. What do you think makes a good self-employed agent, and what do you think are some of those lessons that you learned in the early days?
I think they've got to have that self-motivation to want to succeed. I think that has to be the key. That's number one of all things. I think, the guy that I had, he's still a friend of mine. He was a friend of mine before, and I still talk to him a lot, but I don't think he was maybe best suited for the self-employed role. But at the time, I didn't really see that because I didn't really know exactly what that looked like. And that's something I learned. And he come from a corporate world, and I think corporate managers or corporate valuers tend to have an influx of leads put on their desk. They're sort of thrown at them. Whereas in this role, you are working a little bit harder to network, to get your name out there, to meet new clients, etc. And I think that's where the self-employed model, or that's where being a good self-employed agent comes from. I think you have to have that self-motivation to want to go out and find new clients, as opposed to just waiting for them to fall on your lap. I think that's the first part of it, for sure.
People often ask me when we're chatting in the early days about potentially going self-employed, and I always like the question that I often find it's going to be the successful people that ask this question, but they kind of say, what's the difference between the ones that fail and the ones that succeed? And they want the clues. And I think a lot of people out there, a lot of agents out there, they want the success without the work. And when they realize that the work's going to be tough, because we all paint the picture, don't we? The self-employed lot, and we don't as much, actually, but there are certain there's very high recruiting type process where they paint this amazing picture. But we've all done those 15-hour days at the start, and we've all sacrificed social events, and we've sacrificed our routine that we were talking about off camera, the gym in the morning, or the gym in the afternoon, or the run, or the whatever. We've sacrificed all of those to build what we hope will be the successful foundations to something further. And we've also deep dived into the learning exercises that we've needed to do, the training. When we don't know the answer, we find the answer. We do the work to find the answer. And it's hard because we don't know how to do it at the beginning. It takes longer and it's frustrating, but you push through the frustration to get to the success. And the people that that don't succeed in this, which is unfortunate, and there are some, and you mentioned your first two. Our first three avocados are no longer with us. The first three that came on board, and it comes down to that sacrifice for the success that people are not prepared to do. They want the success, but they're not prepared to do the work, and it comes down to the work.
It does, and I think that's the thing. I think a lot of when you hear about self-employed, I think a lot of the time the businesses that are kind of pushing that are all talking about freedom and the freedom that self-employed brings, and it does to a degree, but you have to work hard to get to, if your goal. I remember, right, so when I was early days, I went on a course, and one of the questions, I was writing down my business plan for the next 10 years, and one of the questions was, where do you see yourself being as a business owner in 10 years? And one of the things I wrote down was I wanted to have a holiday every month. I wanted to go away once a month, not necessarily for like a long week or whatnot, a weekend away, that kind of thing. So I'm not quite there, but not through not being able to, but through choice. But we do go away once every couple of months, guaranteed. We'll go for a long weekend, or I'm going away for my anniversary this week. We're going to Lanzarote next week. So we always try to make time for ourselves as a family, but that's only come from hard work at the early days to build the business to get to the point we're at now. I sacrificed so much at the beginning, like you said, Ian, working long hours, and missing family events, etc., because I was out meeting clients and whatnot. But that had to happen in order to get to where I am today. So I think if you're not prepared to make those sacrifices, self-employment isn't for you realistically. Stay in your office job working for a corporate, because I think that's the life you choose, I guess.
It's so easy now though with technology. If we talk about, I think about with the kids as well, and what are they going to do, and the ability to, in fact, I spoke to Clint Nakamp about this the other day, because we were joking about our phones, and he was kind of saying, look, I spent the whole weekend driving the kids around, and I was like, I was the dad cab all weekend as well for shows and stuff like that. But what we were joking about was how much life would be if we didn't have the phone. The technology in the phone for self-employed now is so different to even 6 years ago. If we look at those two guys in 2018, think how tech has advanced now. They'd probably be successful today because 8 years later, tech is so much more advanced that it allows you to be a business owner at a different level to what you couldn't do before. Imagine having to go back to the office to fire up the desktop to do your emails or to do your this, that, or the other. I posted on LinkedIn, I said, when we launched Avocado, my phone was my email, my camera, my education, my videography, my communication, my marketing channel, my copywriter, my diary, my CRM, my podcast, my research, my note taker, my document scanner, my banking, my investments, my fitness tracker, my laser measurer, my remote climate control, and my fantasy football squad, all on the phone.
Well, when you think about
what an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
What an opportunity. For 40 quid a month, you can start a business with your phone in your pocket. You can eventually get your hub out in your back garden, which sounds like a pretty cool hub, by the way. I'd quite like to come to that hub one day. And there's no excuses really then, is there? Because we've got the ability to do it. What would you say are the biggest challenges that the property cloud are facing at the moment with the market or the agents? When you talk to them, we've had a bit of a chat again in our mastermind group of where people are talking. We've had the war, we've got Bitcoin drop, now it's back on a climb, stock market's taken a tumble. All of these things in the outside circles impact the market. But how are you guys finding it where you are?
Yeah, it is challenging. I think whenever anything happens like this, it's economical. I always say, look, try to control what you can control, not things that you can't, because things like that, whilst they are challenging, they do put pressure on any business. No matter what anyone says, it does put pressure on the business, because it's harder to predict where you're going to be in the next 3 to 6 months. But I think as long as you're managing expectations correctly in terms of the client, in terms of, you do have to work that a little bit harder to try and, win new business and whatnot. But I think as long as you're doing those things and you're doing it well and you're consistent and you turn up, then I do think that you should be okay. I think the ones that tend to struggle, say, from now in 6 months' time, are the ones that kind of sit back and they're just waiting to see what's going to happen. And I think that you just can't afford to do that. You have to be proactive. If you've got properties that are on the market now and they're sticking, it's quite evident that, you know, there's less buyers about, and it's quite evident that buyers are negotiating much harder. And I think, you know, you have to then have those honest conversations with your seller to say, look, we thought it was, you know, 500,000 2 months ago or a month ago when we first come to value the property, but now you've come to the market. Realistically, you need to be mindful that you might not get that price. However, you're looking to buy something as well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So, you know, why don't you, if you have to sacrifice 10, 15,000 on your sale price, go and make up the difference on your purchase price. This is just trying to work a bit smarter as well. And again, it's educating that client. I do think we do that quite well. We've always kind of done that reasonably well with clients. We've never been one to sort of sit back and wait for the market to change again. We've always tried to be on the forefront or on the front foot, should I say, of what's going on. So I think that's needed.
And you've talked about managing expectations a couple of times today. You just, I suppose, went through a little bit about how you will do that. But how important do you think that is for independent agents, particularly, or self-employed agents, to be successful? Do you think it's easier to manage expectations in your role than it is in a corporate, or do you think that's just good estate agency in general, having those difficult conversations with clients? Because that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? The managing of expectations quite often can be skiing downhill from where you thought you'd be.
Yeah, I think it's essential to have those conversations. I don't think you can shy away from it, no matter where you are, whether you're in a corporate or not. It's important to. There's no point you taking on property after property after property if the market's changing and you're taking them on at prices that you valued, you know, 3 months ago, for instance, or whatnot, because that client's then, all that's going to happen is the conversations are going to become harder when you start then talking about price and when you then start talking about the market challenges, etc. And they're going to be less inclined to listen to you because inevitably they're going to be getting touted from every agent under the sun, and eventually they'll become frustrated with the lack of activity or whatever it might be. They'll go to the next agent, they'll hear the things that you've been saying, but then it will solidify in their mind, oh, maybe he was right. But at that point, they've already decided to go elsewhere, and then they reduce the price and then they sell. So I think it's important to keep on top of that, no matter what environment you're in, whether you're self-employed in a corporate or whatnot. It's essential to the success of the next 3 to 6 months, really. So, or more.
I think the education is the marketing, isn't it? And it's,
yeah,
you're either doing it one-on-one because they've invited you out, you know, for an appraisal, for evaluation, for a PAM, as Mark calls it. They've invited you out and you're doing it one-on-one, or you're doing it to your database because you're sending a YouTube video link and a blog and an article, and you're kind of highlighting what's going on with the economy and what that means for you, or you're doing it in a general blitz on socials, you know, in some sort of market update, market review. But I think if you are doing that as an agent, and we know the answers, we know that, okay, mortgage rates have gone up about 0.25% in March. You know, that's where we're at. They were dropping, and now they've gone up a little bit. And as a result, it's a little bit more expensive if you get your mortgage offer today than what it was 30 days ago. But I think having that conversation in the living room, alongside the fact that the stock market has taken a little bit of a hit because of the war that's obviously going on in Iran. And why is that important to you? Well, it's important because a lot of people tend to cash out on their stocks and shares when they're looking to make a move, or if they are a parent that's looking to support a first-time buyer, they'll probably tell that first-time buyer to hold off for 6 months because they've just lost 10 or 15% to the stock value. So it's a bad time to cash out. You know, my stepdad's very into that. And if I was to ask him to borrow some money for some particular reason, he would say, not at the moment, Ian, because it's a bad time to withdraw it. And these types of things, regardless of whether you're based, you know, where you are, where Mark is, or where I am, they have an impact on the market. Is there anything that you find happens more in the sort of London environment that maybe we wouldn't see in the home counties, or Mark wouldn't see, sort of more up north where he is. We talk about this sort of eco climate of that sort of London market. What are the differences that you guys kind of feel as estate agents to maybe what some of the rest of the country doesn't?
Yeah, we're on the outskirts of London, so we're southeast, but North Kent kind of border. And I think where we are is kind of one of the cheaper parts to live in London, although it's not cheap. It's one of the cheaper areas, and the schooling is fantastic around here, and you've got so many grammar schools, etc. And so I think when the market is still facing difficulties, or when there is a shift in activity on a grander scale, our area does seem to kind of bounce back quite quickly, because we do see a lot of people moving from inner London to where we are, because the commute back in is really easy, half an hour from London Bridge, that kind of thing. And as I say, the schooling's great, so we get a lot of people moving out to these areas because they want their kids in the best schools. And so I do think that we are able to capitalize off of that probably more than maybe other parts of the country. But overall we are still affected, maybe, but just not for as long potentially.
Yeah, you're that first ring, aren't you? Whereas the ripple happens, you're the kind of first ripple. What ripple are you, Mark, where you are?
Where's London? By the time it gets out to us, it's like about a year later, typically. I've noticed this actually from Mastermind, and some of the agents that talk about the market down south will see the market 6 to 12 months later, and that's no exaggeration. It's just the way that it works up here. Our market is performing all right, but not phenomenal. And Rightmove keeps saying the market's performing all right because there's more affordability, because it's cheaper around here. What are your predictions for what the next 12 months looks like, Aaron? If a homeowner says to you, "Oh, this war's as typically this war's all kicking off. Maybe now's not a good time to sell." What are your predictions for how the market's going to perform over the next 12 months?
I think that it will blow over sooner than rather than later. I do think, when I say blow over, I think the war will come to an end quicker. It's not going to be like a Ukraine-Russia 4 or 5 years down the line. And I think that the markets will start to recover, perhaps in the second half of this year. That's what I think will happen. And then from there, I think confidence will come back into the market. Because I think when we started seeing the talks about interest rates going up, it was almost instant, where we started seeing buyers going, "Oh, hold on a minute, let's sit on our hands here," and sellers as well. Similarly, let's wait and see what's going to happen. But I think for a lot of movers, I think if you work it out in pounds and pence, I think they would still be better off buying now and taking a little bit of a hit in the mortgage rates, maybe signing up for no more than 2 years on a fixed term, and then remortgaging in 2 years. I think they'd still be better off, because I think in 2 years' time, or a year's time, if prices, if the rates do come back down, there's confidence in the market and prices start to rise again, I think potentially they'll be worse off, because it'd be harder for them to buy a bigger home or a better home. They might have to sacrifice what they were looking for, or what they could potentially buy now, potentially. So but again, it just comes back to what Ian said. It's about education on that side of things. But yeah, I think within the next sort of 6 to 12 months, I think the market will start to recover. Maybe it's more of a hope, but
I always find it interesting, when you get the Rightmove report. So I guess you guys get that as well. Every month it says, right, you listed X and you sold Y. And for me, kind of on the sort of scale now, it paints an interesting picture for me, because I kind of go, okay, well, that's about 75% or 85% or 65% or whatever the ratio may be. But it gives me a bit of an insight. I would say that February, I think it was about 70%, something like that for us, which Normally it sits in the 80s or low 90s. So it was a little bit lighter, than it normally would be. But I still look at it and I think our pipeline is as big as it's ever been since we launched.
Yeah.
So if the business is growing, and it might be tough, but if they're getting sold, then that's all we can ask for. And I think it goes back to everything that we know, isn't it? Pricing, marketing, right conversations, expectations, all of that jazz. But I think there's an appetite out there, but I do think that there's probably more sellers now than buyers in a ratio that was probably different to maybe what we've seen for the last couple of years. But that's okay. If we're doing the units and the market kind of sits in line with inflation, then we've been crying out for a normal market, and I think it kind of feels that way at the moment. I think it's where the good agents become really good and the average agents struggle, and I think that's probably what we'll see for the rest of the year. There's also an interesting point that we're not a million miles away from the financial year ending. And I've never really looked at it before, because when I wasn't a business owner, as a trend or as a key marker. But a lot of people that I talk to at the moment kind of suggest it, that seem to be business owners. I guess we attract business owners, being that that's the work that we're in. But they're saying, I'm just waiting for my final year's accounts to get drawn up and then we're looking to move, and it feels like that's a marker as well, which is something that an estate agent can use on socials, or part of their education is that, okay, we've got April happening, maybe accounts will be done by May. So, we're in that place where we'll actually see a lot more family sized markets come to the market for upsizers, downsizers, because the end of year accounts will be done, or financial accounts will be done. That'd be an interesting marker to see if that has a bit of a knee jerk on it as well. One last thing then, Aaron, if you were bringing a self-employed agent to Property Cloud, and I'm sure there'll be another one joining very soon, you mentioned obviously about the mindset and stuff, but what would be the most important tool? Can't say phone because I've already used that one, but what would be the most important tool? You've mentioned AI, you've mentioned obviously some of the other factors that you've been looking at, but what is like your little secret weapon that you love at the moment that you would suggest a self-employed agent, learns, buys, incorporates, whatever it may be?
Yeah. So it's a combination of, I think, our videographer, who is a bit of a secret weapon of ours right now, and because he's with us full time now, and social media, I think. So utilizing social media within, getting your name out there, your face out there, and being as present on it as you can, I guess, in more so your local groups, like your local Facebook groups and whatnot. But also creating content that stands out, rather than, like for us, our video tours, they're very different to what they used to be. They used to be kind of a showcase of the whole home, a walking through tour. Now they're very quick movements, retaining attention. That works quite well for us. We've seen an increase in social media following. We've seen an increase in the comment sections, in likes, etc. And as I say, we're starting to now see clients contact us because of it. So I think that's one side of it. As you put me on the spot, I can't really think of anything else right now. But
well, I mean, what's more powerful than having a good good set of video suites on your socials at the moment? It is the shop window. It's the social shop window. God, that's hard to say. And it does do the job. And I think I always think with a self-employed agent or an independent versus the corp, it's the David versus Goliath scenario. I know me and Mark watch Gladiators. I'm sure you watch it, but the kid that knocked off Giant, when he knocked him off that stand, you just think, wow, that's the David versus. It happens, right? And if a self-employed agent has got the right tools and the right kit, they can destroy the corporates. They can destroy the independents with the right tools. Used effectively. That's the world we're in now. So, videographer, good socials. It's talking my language for sure.
Sure, it definitely works. So,
no, love that. Thank you, Aaron. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
Been
for
really
inviting.
helpful. I think, Mark, anything else from you before we wrap up, bud?
No, I'm all good. The one thing that, as you're saying, that socials and videos, and it goes back to what you said when you were looking for a good self-employed. It's the hard-working mentality, because you can't just do it once. It's about repetitive. You mentioned about being really proactive into groups and all that sort of thing. And I think this chat's been good advice on that. That it is doable, and you could argue that it is probably easier now with the phone and the video and all of that than it ever has been. But it doesn't take away the fact that it might be easier, but it's not easy. It's about hard work.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. You've got to turn up. You've got to put in the effort. Otherwise, it won't work realistically.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. Thanks, Aaron. I'll see you soon, mate.
Pleasure. Yeah. Cheers, guys.
A massive thank you once again to Aaron Kirk from the Property Cloud for joining us today. We like speaking to estate agents who are in there doing it. It was a proper estate agency chat. And the thing for me, I said it as just before it went off, that was a conversation there isn't a silver bullet. And the answer to world-class estate agency isn't one thing, it's many things.
Yeah.
And that was a really good reminder for anybody who might be feeling a little bit demotivated by the market and everything that's happening at the moment. He talked about controlling the controllables, but ultimately it's the graph that you put in and the motivation that you have to make it work. That he raised a really good point. That's what gets you the freedom. It's not the model or the commission that gets you the freedom. The hard work gets you the freedom. I think that's a really valuable lesson to take away from today's episode.
Yeah, it's the ultimate summary of it, isn't it? And I also like the journey that he's been on of pivoting. There isn't a straight line to success, is there? It's diagonal changes all the time, but he's quick fired and he's kind of looked at the analysis and he's swallowed his pride, because sometimes you have to when you change. He's created the Property Cloud and the clues in the name with it being an online setup, and he's transitioned it to actually kind of a personal agency brokerage model, quite high end. If you look at the properties on the website, they've got a videographer between 5 self-employed agents full-time employed, which is proper. Yeah, that's a proper setup. And he's done that because he can see that that's what the future looks like, is being a good social window, basically. Also, like the bit that
as well.
What's that? Sorry.
I love that answer about the social and video. You were looking for the golden bullet, that tool, this AI, this super efficient, that, and video and social.
Yeah.
Video and social.
Do it well, do it consistent, and it wins. And it is the most powerful tool. And I totally agree with him on that. I liked what he said when he was talking about the background story around. He had a boss, that was really challenging to work for. And he even shared that, it impacted his mental health. He questioned leaving the industry. And I've been in that situation. I think a lot of people will have been in that situation where you have a really negative influence and you question whether you've fallen out of love with the industry. I fell out of love with the industry a little bit in that scenario. I actually told that person that as well once. Probably wasn't the best career move. But he mentioned it. But what you do see is you see this total transition from, this is what I don't like, and I'm going to build the opposite. And you can see exactly the same in what I've done and other people have done out there. But I like it when people turn that negative experience and they spin it round into a culture and an ethos and a style, and in this case, a business that totally reflects the opposite of the bad experience, because it normally can dictate a really successful one, which is what he's done. So I really like that story as well. I think a lot of people can look at that are struggling at the moment with a bad boss and think, well, if you were to do it yourself, how would you do it differently? And can you, is the question to ask yourself.
I think it shows real strong character to take that really negative experience, bank it and say, right, I'm going to do everything exactly opposite to that. I think that's, a really, really strong character trait to do, because there's loads of people that would have just walked away at that point and said, right, I'm not doing it. So yeah, kudos to him for that, because it takes a lot of guts to do it and say, right, I don't agree with that, and I'm going to do it this other way because you made me feel, how you've made me feel. So yeah, I completely agree. And I think you're right. If anyone is listening and going through that similar sort of process, then this conversation that we've had today should be, real good motivator for you, because actually it doesn't have to be like that. And also not everyone is like that. Not everyone is like his boss, because for people like that old boss, then there's people like Aaron who, as he explained, is building a business that allows families to go and take time to watch sports day and all that sort of thing, which I think is, I think there's a bit of a societal change in that. I think that's probably become, a little bit more acceptable, but, long may that continue, because you mentioned about estate agency being a young man and a young girl's game. That's not what we're seeing now. And I think the experience that we lose by tying people to their desk till 7 o'clock at night, the experience that we lose out of the industry isn't good, because those are the agents that now have done all that hard work that we talked about, that can reap the rewards in terms of freedom, because it doesn't take them the amount of time now that it took them when they first joined the industry to do a task really well. So yeah, I thought that conversation in terms of the boss and allowing the flexibility, I thought it was a really interesting transition, something that, he's felt wronged and therefore he's righted it himself. Fair play.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we mentioned about you can't just be good off a training session, the next day. There's a lot of time and experience and scenarios that goes into being an experienced estate agent, and we don't want to lose that from the industry. And you're right, it's improving with the restructuring and the models and the way that some of the independents are looking at things as well. It's not just self-employed agencies now that are lending flexibility. A lot of the independents are as well. I'm not sure the corporates have grasped it, but a lot of the local independents around me seem to be way more flexible for parents and for seniors. There's actually a true benefit of becoming a branch manager in a lot of the independents around here, because you do get that flex, which you didn't used to get. So, it's not just the salary and the responsibility, but you get the flex a little bit involved in a lot of these agencies too. And it takes a long time to build that experience. We definitely don't want to lose it from the industry. There's a lot of experience in the book. There's a link in the notes, right? We'll be putting the link for the book in all of the podcast show notes. So if someone wants to pick that up, it's evergreen, really. There's nothing in that that's chronological. So even if it's December the 31st and you think, I probably should pick that book up for the next year, it's still valuable. We'll have a new one, but it's going to be valuable all year, that book. So if you're looking for a little pivot, a little bit of inspiration and something to kind of give you a driving force in a different direction or a change of perspective, then for a tenner, the book's probably well worth its weight in gold for someone to go and hit that link and give it a purchase while we've still got some.
Yeah, absolutely. Final point, Everton Chelsea predictions.
Well, I mean, by the time this goes out, it'll be a month down the line.
Good point. Yeah.
So
we're still organised these days.
Yeah, because we're super organised. I don't know. We're terrible at the moment. We lost to Newcastle. I think we had 20 chances. They had 1 and we lost 1-0. We outplayed Paris Saint-Germain and then we lost 5-2 because we threw it away. I'm going to the game tonight, looking for a miracle turnaround, not expecting it at all. So by the time this happens, we'll probably be 7th in the league, out of the Champions League and knocked out of the finals. Sorry?
Sack the manager?
Probably won't sack the manager, but maybe get a goalie like we've been asking for 2 seasons, and that would probably make the difference. But I don't know, Rossignol. We'll see what happens.
You get Paultini in the middle of the huddle again.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was really weird.
What's also weird is he looks identical to a good friend of mine called James Darla. So to me, it was just strange because it looked like Darla was in the middle of the Chelsea huddle and he's a Tottenham fan. So there we go. Anyway, that's probably it. I've got acupuncture in 20 minutes, so we better wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive thank you once again to Aaron for joining us. As you know, we do this because we love the industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's show, or if you've enjoyed the book, please share it out on social media. I'm Mark Worrall. He's Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again next week.